Welcome to How to Leave Teaching, the podcast for educators feeling stuck, overwhelmed, or just yearning for something more. I'm Julie, once in your shoes, navigating those same challenges and emotions. Here, we share heartfelt stories and tactical advice from former teachers who found their way out, ensuring you're not alone on this journey. I am so glad you found us. Hey guys, welcome back to a fresh start here. Hey, it's a whole new year for How to Leave Teaching, the podcast that's going to help you break free of all the things that you don't like about your current career if you're in the classroom. I'm Julie. I'm really happy to be here with you. You know, when we think about the new year, we usually think about resolutions, right? I don't do those. I feel like it's just so negative. It's all about quitting or not doing something. That doesn't really feel expansive to me. I've been vision boarding the past, oh my gosh, like decade, I guess. And I really love it. You know, it's like a visual representation. I'll meditate, I'll sit down with a stack of magazines and just start pulling out words and photos and phrases that appeal to me for whatever reason. Maybe I don't even know what it is. And that's been a really good approach for me to be able to kind of start thinking about, like, what do I want to move toward? But yeah, it's spring and fall for me. I'm not doing vision boarding in January. In January, I'm under an electric blanket with my husband and my dog and a couple cups of hot cocoa in our peaceful house because we're reflecting and we're recharging for the year ahead. But speaking of new beginnings, in today's episode, we have a really special guest, Andrea Hanson, and she's a former teacher who she decided to take a leap of faith and she turned her passion into a thriving business. And in actuality, she started several businesses. She's somebody that knows firsthand what it's like to leave the classroom and embark on a new path. So without further ado, let me introduce you to our incredible guest, this teacher turned successful business owner, that is Andrea Hanson. And she's going to share her insights, experiences, tips. We talk a lot about how to manage the other people in our life when we're thinking about a big change. A lot of times people will dump their fears for us on us. And I think that Andrea had so much insight in that area specifically. But yeah, I want to hear about your resolutions or your intentions or see your vision board. Email me at julie@whatsnextteacher.com and share it with me. I'd love to get aligned with you guys. All right. With that, let's talk to Andrea. Welcome to How to Leave Teaching. Our guest today is Andrea Hanson, and she's a former teacher who made the decision to leave the education field in spite of really loving the field and some criticism and doubts from people around her. So today she's going to share what her journey was like and how she navigated all of those sorts of challenges to enter a new chapter in life professionally, and I'm sure personally as well. So thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, absolutely. I love sharing my story and also just encouraging teachers to follow their gut to do what they're most passionate about.
Yeah. It's amazing because when I left, there was nothing like this. I didn't know anybody else who had gone through this kind of a journey, and I would have loved to be able to talk to someone and pick their brain. So that's what we're going to do now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So you left teaching, or you started teaching in 2004. That's the same year that I started as well. What was that like for you as a new career, starting out as a new teacher?
I knew I wanted to be a high school math teacher probably when I was in 10th grade and just kept going after that passion. I do feel like I was called to that job and felt fulfilled. I loved everything about it. It was challenging and exciting. And I really felt like I was in the spot where I was supposed to be. So the first couple of years are hard just because of the classroom discipline stuff that you just can't learn in college. So I struggled with that piece of it, but really kind of fell into a groove and earned the students' respect, and just really, really enjoyed the personal connections with teenagers and talking to them about, what do you want to be when you grow up? Let's talk about that. Let's mastermind it. Not really understanding that is my true calling, is empowering people to chase after whatever lights them up. So the study hall conversations were the best part of my day, because I could just talk to kids about anything, and I didn't have to worry about, the meetings or the, all the politics. It was just connecting with kids.
I think that's really an important point, because I think we don't tend to think about that as being a professional skill or something that we could build on to find a career. And so how did you really come at that understanding?
It probably was over the course of these 8 years that I have been out of the classroom and looking at business. So let me back up. I taught for 12 years, and that last year I was also building a network marketing business that I fell in love with, super passionate about. I got to empower women, hold them accountable to their workouts and eating healthy, and loved that I could use my strong work ethic to actually increase my income, which doesn't happen in education. You don't get financially compensated for being amazing at your job. So I took a leap of faith, left the classroom to do that full time, added on a boutique a year later, opened up brick and mortar. A couple years later, we bought a building, gutted that. We have 4 apartments on the second floor of a historic downtown building. And after all of those businesses, people started asking for advice, saying, I feel a nudge to do this thing that feels like it's totally random, not related to my current job. How did you do that? And so with repeated questions and just mentoring people through that process, I was like, there's probably more people out there than just the few that have been brave enough to ask for help. I want to use my teaching skills, kind of reignite them from the ashes, and host workshops and do trainings and connect with people one-on-one to coach them through whatever they are passionate about and turning that into a career. So it evolved through all of that. And it's like a full circle moment back to those study hall conversations where they would tell me what really truly lights them up. And most of them would say, but I can't turn that into a job, when they really can. And I was having those conversations 10, 15 years ago, and now having them again, just with my peers instead.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. I mean, these things are so much more clear in hindsight. And I do wonder about what your thought process was before leaving, leading up to leaving, and what was the emotional landscape like that you were navigating? A lot of the teachers that I talk to have immense guilt, fear. I know it's one of the hardest parts of the transition.
It totally is. And I think it's because teaching is seen as such a noble career, and it becomes part of our identity. And now all of a sudden that's stripped away. I was met with a lot of confusion, fear from others, criticism. One of my closest friends told me that I was wasting my talent by leaving the classroom. That one cut really deep. I wasn't looking for an escape route. I was not dissatisfied. This was pre-pandemic. I wasn't trying to leave the classroom, but I felt this intense pull inside of me to just go in this direction to see where it could go. When I left the classroom, it was on a leave of absence, so I didn't fully cut the cord right away. I got approved to have 3 years to just figure out my life, and I could say quack, quack, seat back and come right back into the classroom at any point. it eventually turned into a resignation, but the thought process was truly just trusting that this pull in my heart was something that I would completely regret 5 years down the road had I not just tried it. So it was a leap of faith. It didn't make any sense on paper. I was leaving a steady income for a very roller coaster one, but I knew I just needed to try this for myself because we get one life on this spinning ball in the middle of the universe. I needed to just see what was behind that door.
Yeah, I think that's really well said too. There's so much bureaucracy around trying to keep teachers in the classroom who are ready to leave by fining them for breaking a contract, instilling fear. I've heard about administrators saying you're not going to find work anywhere else.
Oh, that's a lie.
Right. That's really smart how you went about this and instilling or setting up that leave of absence to kind of give you some wiggle room and some security. So did that kind of help you feel like you had something to fall back on?
Absolutely. And it also helped my risk-averse husband with the decision because he knew at any point if things went off the rails and I wasn't bringing in the income that I had dreamed to do with my business, we had the backup plan. And even in today's climate with the huge shortage, you could resign and you could apply back and you could probably negotiate even a higher pay than you left with. So it's right now, it doesn't feel risky in this climate to step away and just try something else. You always can go back. You could go back in pretty much any district right now. So that leave of absence was definitely something that helped ease the fear from people around me in my life. But ultimately, I had to do it regardless of how scary it was to other people around me.
Yeah. Do you have other advice about how to navigate that particular challenge with people? You said, they were feeling fear on your behalf. How did you really navigate that?
It was mainly just having really good boundaries on what I believed of myself and my abilities and being authentic to what I was feeling pulled to do. And at the end of the day, this is my one incredible life that I get to decide what I'm going to do with it. I am doing that in conjunction with my husband because we are a partnership. So I didn't necessarily need his permission per se, but I wanted his blessing and his support in my endeavor. So as soon as we were on the same page, I really just had to block out the people that were the naysayers, the big loud voices that were scared on my behalf. I know it was coming from a good place. And I even said that to a few of them, just that I know you care about me and you're worried about the stability and the comfort of this, but this is my life and I'm really excited about this opportunity. So I need to do this for me. And that usually 9 times out of 10 calmed down the conversation enough for them to be like, okay, I am projecting myself into this situation that really isn't mine to do. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it really does. I wonder about how you had such a well-developed self-concept about where you were going, because I personally faced a lot of imposter syndrome, and even further into my career post-teaching, and I had done all these things that I hadn't dreamed that I could do professionally. I was going, I feel like a teacher that's on an extended field trip. Ridiculous. Like, the imposter syndrome is so hard to shake. How did you face that at all? And if so, what was that like?
Oh, I think imposter syndrome is universal to every human experience. I think it's I think you're a rare one if you don't struggle with it. I poured myself into personal development books, listening to podcasts, like trying to reprogram the thoughts that were going on between my ears. And the only way to do that is to fill it with other new thoughts. So I, since started that very first business, that has been a constant for the last 8 years, is making sure that I'm reading something every single day, listening to a podcast, doing something every single day to reprogram that to the way that we talked to our students. I wasn't talking to myself the way that I would encourage those kids in my study hall. And I realized, okay, I need to change this. This is a me job. Nobody can fix this for me. And if I want to try all of these things, all of these business ideas, each one was scary. I didn't know anything about any of them as I started them, but I just kept putting one foot in front of the other. And the courage and the confidence came from making sure that I was constantly growing in that way.
I could see how that would be really reinforcing. I think that's super smart. I did something kind of similar. I went on a little exploration of trying to figure out how, as women, we're socialized to show up at work, because I felt like that was a huge piece of what was holding me back. And that's so reinforced in the teaching field, right?
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. I felt that too. Mine was mostly the imposter syndrome, because I would be sitting at home thinking about all my coworkers at my district, and I'm just sitting there like, who do I think I am? Just handing in my keys, and now I'm just sitting in my living room running this digital business that I have. This is so insane. And then in those moments, I'm like, okay, I need to be putting something else in my mind. This is toxic and not okay. So that's when I would pick up a book or turn on my Audible. So it's a day.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And I wonder too about how you navigated the financial aspects of leaving. I get questions constantly about, well, there are such great benefits with teaching. One thing I realized is the benefits were not that great. And in the private sector elsewhere, benefits are looking a lot better, including, better 401k plans, better health plans. That is really shaking people. And I talked to a teacher too who went and worked at Trader Joe's to be able to have insurance while she was building her business. Was that something that was a concern for you? And how did you kind of think about that piece of the pie?
So my husband and I sat down and looked at our finances, figured out what are some extras that we could part ways with temporarily. I just switched over to his insurance because he works full-time job. He's an engineer. And so we figured out the insurance piece of it and basically just said, we're going to trust for an entire year and just evaluate on a year-to-year basis. Do I need to go back to the classroom? And once my husband saw the success I had in my first business, when the next one came up for the boutique, he's like, absolutely. I don't have a question in my mind that you're going to be successful in that. So let's make a tiny investment to start small and just keep reinvesting and growing that. And that's what I did. And I had the time to do that because I wasn't in the classroom. So I am a firm believer that if you feel a nudge to leave, you probably aren't going to see the doors that open until you shut that one first. Like, I don't think we get all 10 steps given to us in those nudges. Sometimes you have to step out in faith, and then you see the opportunities unfold before you. I've mentored many women away from their 9-to-5, and it has happened for every single one of them. When they shut the door, all of a sudden they're like, oh, this opportunity, it was there before, but I didn't see it. It was literally in my life, but I didn't see it as a business opportunity because everything was so clouded and you've got so much going on with all of the things that go with teaching. And sometimes you just have to step out, and then those other things open up.
I love that, the way you just kind of took it step by step and stepped out into this new reality for you. What was the first business idea you had, and where did that come from?
After I left the classroom, I was working my network marketing business, and I had too much time on my hands because it was a side hustle before, and now it was my main hustle. And I was so used to this bell system. Your whole life is run by like 50-minute blocks. So with all of this freedom, I had no skills in managing my time. And so I actually made less money that first year of just doing my coaching business because I was like, I didn't have any structure. So adding in the boutique business gave me so much more familiarity in my time management to be able to like time block things and fill my day with a variety of things. So the boutique opportunity, which I would not have had dropped into my lap had I been teaching full time, was a friend who lived in Texas but had roots where I live in Minnesota, and came home over Christmas and said, "Hey, I have this boutique that I run out of my house, and I'm kind of wanting to expand it and have other women have the same boutique name, kind of like a franchise, but not really. And I'll teach you everything I know. Would you want to do that?" And I'm like, yes. I've always wanted to own a store since I was in high school and working in the gift shops in the town that I grew up in. So love small business. And this was like right up my alley. So she mentored me. I paid her a large amount of money to basically coach me in the beginning. And I was successful instantly because I didn't have to figure out any of the back end office stuff on my own. And hiring her was 10 out of 10 recommended. So I take that into all of my other endeavors. Ask somebody who is before you to help guide you in those beginning days, because it can help speed up your process of finding a successful business. So that dropped into my lap because I had the space in my life to be able to see it and also take advantage of it.
Right. And it's amazing how many mentors are out there that we don't really recognize immediately. What was the coaching process like? I know a lot of listeners are probably curious about what it would be like to have a business coach or a career coach.
Yeah, so that is my newest business and my absolute fully aligned passion. Like I said before, it's a full circle moment of being able to help people take whatever they happen to be passionate about. Maybe you want to open a bait shop, or you love to knit and you just want to start a business around that, or you want to have a food truck. I don't have personal experience in the actual task. What I love doing is helping peel back any mental blocks that you might have around this business idea, and then giving you tangible steps on where can you go to learn more information for that. Through all of my business life, I've made a lot of connections with people who have skill sets in different areas. So I've got people to recommend, but also just like basic things. For instance, if you want to have a food truck, you need to be calling your local city government building to see what licenses do I need to get in order to do this? What is the beginning process stuff? So people get overwhelmed by their big idea and don't even know where to start. And sometimes they just need someone to talk to that, first of all, doesn't look at them like they have three heads, like many people do who aren't entrepreneurial minded, and give them just the encouragement and tangible steps on how to get started. So that's what my one-on-one calls are like. And I have one-day workshops where I gather women and I bring in speakers and just fan flames of belief in people, which is my absolute favorite thing to do. And I also have retreats and masterminds as well for people that are wanting to dive in even deeper.
If you're here, you've probably been feeling it for a while now, that pull to leave teaching. But with that comes the anxiety of the unknown, the fear that you're actually trapped, and of course, that daunting question, what's next? Well, enter our new 90-minute holistic strategy session. This is tailored just for you. It's aimed at helping you uncover careers that resonate, to craft your resume draft, and it's okay if you don't have anything yet and you're starting from scratch. And we'll unlock the secrets to landing your next job with clarity and with confidence. Let's get you out of this cycle of uncertainty and pain and carve out your new path together. Book your transformative session today over at whatsnextteacher.com. That sounds phenomenal. And I do really resonate with that thought that, just a little bit further down the path, someone that's just a little bit further down the path can help guide you, just showing you those first couple of essential steps, and then it can snowball.
Absolutely.
Did you have any failures to begin with, or stumbling blocks, or was it sort of, just a successful first launch?
I personally see failure as a learning opportunity, which maybe that's just the inherent teacher in me, where, for instance, in my building that we bought, I made so many mistakes because I've never managed a project before. And that was a huge, huge project, turning this very old, vacant second level into livable apartments, and needing to know things like fire code and, just all those things that I have no background in. So I made a lot of mistakes. I had a lot of days of just bawling my eyes out from the stress and the frustration of never doing it before. But every single time, the next day, you look back and you're like, well, now I know that. So if I would ever do this again, or if someone would ever ask me for advice, I have this wealth of firsthand experience doing a project like that to be able to help someone. So I'm sure some people would look at some of my experiences and be like, well, you failed in this, or this, but I genuinely learned something from it that I can help somebody else avoid if they ever asked. So maybe that's not the answer you were looking for, but that's just kind of how I see it.
No, I think that's spot on. I used to tell my students I would kind of really enjoy giving them hard things to do sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm confused. I'm like, that's great, because that means you're about to learn something.
Yeah.
You really have to get there first, to that state of overwhelm and feeling like you're in over your head, or you're just going to be in the same place you started.
Yep. Absolutely. Totally agree.
Well, in terms of thinking about business ideas, how you've done so much that's just really diverse. So how do you know really when you've got a good idea versus, kind of a cool concept? How do you know if something's viable, and when do you choose to pursue something?
I really love this question. It's probably the most common question that I get from people when they book a call, is they want someone to tell them, is this a good idea or not? And I want to preface my answer with, I can't tell anyone that yes or no. That has to come from in here, but there are ways to kind of put it through a test to see if it's something that you truly should follow. And the first one is, if it's an idea that you have tried to push away, but it keeps coming back, like you're laying in bed trying to fall asleep, and all of a sudden that idea comes up again, and you're like, no, I told you I'm too scared to do that. We're not doing that. But it just keeps coming back. Even the harder you try to push it down, it just keeps popping. That's one. Number two is that get in a quiet space with no other distractions and think about, in 5 years, will I regret not doing this? And if it's just like a willy-nilly idea that you can kick to the curb. You're going to know in your gut, like, yeah, I won't really care. Like, it won't bother me. But if that scary thing that keeps coming back tells you you will regret not trying this, you know it's a nudge that you need to do. And then the third one is that you start seeing doors open towards that thing that maybe don't make sense. Like someone even bringing up the nudge in a totally random situation, or just tiny opportunities start like peeking their way into your life. If you've got those three things in mind and it's still nudging at you, you should probably give it a try. At least tiptoe towards it. You don't have to invest $10,000 into this idea, but start taking steps towards it and see how it feels.
That's really great advice. As you were talking, I started wondering your perspective on this. So a lot of teachers go into teaching because it's a calling, and it is thought of, as you said earlier, it's a noble profession. And teachers that I've worked with have said, well, I don't want to do a job just for the money, or I don't really want to be financially, really well off. I want to do something that matters. I want to sleep at night knowing I made a difference. And I have to say, I don't see these things as necessarily dichotomous like that. You can feel great about what you're doing and be financially successful, but I think it's hard for them to envision. And I would just love to hear you talk about your thoughts on that.
I think we tell ourselves some pretty crazy money stories in our head. And some of them come from when we were really young. Some of them could just come from a singular comment you got in college, where suddenly you have this connection with this green paper making people evil, or that it's bad, or really anything negative, but it is literally green paper. And if your goal is to make a difference, having $1 million versus $10, you could make a massive difference in other people's lives with that money. So good people accumulating more money is always good because they're going to do good with it. So it takes a lot of work. And I've read multiple books on money mindset to help change my view of it so that I don't feel icky, or my big thing was I feel like if I make a bunch of money, I'm going to be irrelevant to the people that I care about. I don't know where that story came from, but that's my most prominent one that I am undoing, because I know for a fact that I want to be wildly philanthropic with my money. And the more that I can accumulate, the more good that I can do to those in need around me. So that's how I feel about money when I hear people say, well, I don't need to make a lot of money. I literally am a teacher because of the lives that I can change. And that's true for every teacher. But you can also feel that way as an entrepreneur, and just use those pieces of green paper that come to you because you're really good at what you do in business, and give it to other people that need it.
Right. Yeah. Are there other mindset shifts like the money mindset shift that you had to make or that you work with your clients on?
Yeah, it's mostly the imposter syndrome that we talked about earlier, to be honest, because a lot of women have these visions of what their life could look like, or their dream job, or leaving their 9 to 5, but they're worried about what their family and friends are going to say because they've built this identity around this other career that they have. Most of the people that I help are teachers, just because they resonate with my story. So they've got this image of themselves that everyone, you tell people you're a teacher and everyone's like, oh my gosh, I could never do that. And it's this pedestal that people put you on, and you feel like a saint. And so stripping that away, it does feel a little bit alienating. And many of them are like, who do I think I am to just leave this? Like it's a comfortable, stable, noble career. And I just feel called to do X, Y, or Z. Like, who am I? And I just firmly believe that the more wild and left field a nudge is, like, those are the most exciting clients that I have, because it doesn't make sense on paper. My leave did not make sense on paper. I was not matching my teaching income with my network marketing business when I left. I just felt called to do it. And it was a massive leap of faith. And I've had to do a lot of rewiring of my own thoughts of myself. And it's been the most incredible journey, because I know I'm a better human all around from all of the growth. So I just really hope and pray that I can help other women do that exact same thing.
That has to feel so good. I would love to hear about something you're really proud of that you've achieved through these ventures.
I would say the thing I'm most proud of entrepreneur-wise is helping my two best friends leave their jobs to pursue things that light them up. One of them was a teacher. One of them worked in HR, in corporate, and they are both in like the first year of not being in their 9 to 5. And I get to have full day dates with them where we go out to lunch, we go to the spa, we just daydream about entrepreneurship at least once a month. And it feels like I am living a dream life. It is so rewarding to have like my two closest friends right now like live this alongside me. And that's what I'm most proud of.
That's phenomenal. Yeah, I think it's hard for teachers to envision that something like that could be possible.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of an unconventional answer, because you're talking about something you sort of did, in an ancillary way to the career. That's really interesting. And I wonder if you could talk about what were the biggest challenges that you faced personally with all of this? Was it practical? Was it emotional? Where should a teacher that wants to leave really think about starting in terms of growth?
I would say the hardest part was when I first left the classroom. I didn't have a core, really strong group of women that I could lean into when I was feeling that self-doubt, because there were so many days that first year where I was just spinning my wheels, and I didn't have anyone to turn to, because so many people had told me I was crazy for doing it, that I knew they weren't safe to reach out to on the days that I was doubting myself. So before taking any leaps of faith, gather a community of women that are going to champion you and cheer you on, and not just like blow smoke at you and say, you're the best, you're the greatest, but give you truth and honesty when you need it, but also just to like be there when you're walking through all of the emotions of a big life change like this. It felt very lonely at the beginning, because I didn't know I needed that safety net to help in that transition phase, which is what I love being for the women that reach out to me and ask for my help. Is I get to be that for them. So find a community, even just one person. If you could find 3, even better, but get a group of people that are going to support you.
That's a great tip. I'm luckily a part of an entrepreneurial community here in Tulsa, and just hearing my friends' stories. One said, I realized through the launch of my business that I don't want to run a business. I don't want to be an entrepreneur. And she thought she did. And she's like, it's just not the life for me. Like, this isn't what I want to do moment to moment.
Yeah.
And you just learn so much from hearing someone else's perspective on going through it. And community, I think, is so important too when you leave teaching, because you do oftentimes lose your identity. And when you are feeling untethered, like you don't know who you are, if you're not, like you said, this saint, this helper, this important person for 120 young people, you can feel really lost. So I could see how that would be super grounding.
Absolutely. That's a great word for it.
If you were to give advice to a teacher that is about to leave or really thinking about leaving, but they're afraid, they're frozen, what kind of advice would you give that person?
Getting as much quiet time as possible, because I think with all of the social media scrolling and fearful friends and family speaking, fear into you in that decision time can get very noisy. So getting some quiet time, taking a drive in your car, listening to some positive mindset things on podcasts or books, just to like clear out the noise in your own head. Getting really grounded. I really like that you use that word. Just to figure out, what do I want? Not enough of us dream and really ask ourselves that question, especially as women. I feel like we're just serving everyone around us. But truly, what do you want? Because at some point you're going to get to the end of your life and look back, like, did you live the life you wanted to live? Because I think if we are all living in our own zone of genius, feeling fulfilled, in alignment with like what we are here on earth to do, that would be such a beautiful world to live in if we were all doing that. I think stress and chaos and division comes when we're distracted and we're not doing the job that we're on this earth to do. If it's not in alignment, if it doesn't feel right anymore, you need to pivot and do something else. So I think everyone needs to be really getting quiet and figuring out what should I be doing on this earth while I'm here.
That's really beautiful advice, and something I've had to fall back on. I hear a lot, like, you're poaching teachers from the classroom and we need teachers. It's a teacher shortage. Why do we have to sacrifice our dreams to hold up a system that's
exactly?
And why do we think that? Why do we feel guilt? We've been enculturated that way, and it's really hard to break out of that. So I give you a lot of credit.
Thank you. I totally agree with what you were saying.
When I'm working with clients and they don't know what to do next, and that's why this business name occurred to me, because it was the resounding question every time. I don't know what else I can do. I also don't know what else, teachers are prepared for, professionally, where, if I apply for something, they're going to give me a glance. And what I've done with clients is have them do life maps, map out all of the high points and all of the low points in your life. And I'm not talking about just professionally, but everything from age 0 to now, and really look at where the commonalities are and what the themes are, and see if anything that career-wise you've been kind of kicking around aligns with that. And that's kind of one strategic way to go about it and at least get a starting point. But do you do something similar, or how do you work with clients who are just completely clueless about where to go next?
I, first of all, love that idea. It's like a brain dump of everything that lights them up. Most people, when they come to me, they already have like a nudge to do something in a specific direction. I have had one just know that she wasn't supposed to be doing the job that she was currently doing, but had no idea what to do. And so we just did a brain dump of what brings you joy, and not even career-wise. Like, I just needed her to think outside the box. So think back to when she was a kid, like you were saying, and what did you do just for fun? You know, we didn't have cell phones back then. So what were you doing to fill your Saturday? And I asked her to do those things, because doing them hopefully would get her in a mindset where she's thinking outside the box and able to dream. I think it's a lack of our ability to think it's okay to, like, imagine having $1 million and you could wave a magic wand. What would your life look like? That feels scary for a lot of people and not concrete enough. So sometimes just doing the actual creative task, like going to the craft store and getting the supplies, will help kind of kick your brain into thinking a different way and eventually figuring out what direction to go. And it might mean, in the meantime, leaving that 9 to 5 and doing a couple part-time jobs just to get out of her situation, which was toxic at her job. So she needed to leave. And that toxicity was clouding her ability to think about, well, what do I really want? There was just too much chaos going on. So sometimes you need to remove yourself from the environment too.
That's a really valuable perspective. I think probably most teachers that are leaving right now are coming out of toxic environments. And
Yes.
how are you supposed to think clearly? How are you supposed to make such big decisions about the rest of your life with all of that going on?
Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
I'd love to hear you talk about what you have going on right now and anything you think would be relevant or useful to teachers that are wanting to leave, and what your services are there.
I can't say enough about getting yourself in the room with other dreamers and doers. I personally am hosting a workshop in December, but I host it multiple times a year. It's called How She Did It, where I have a panel of speakers come, I feed you dinner, and we get to just be in a room together and sharing that collective excited energy with one another and brainstorm and all the things. But I also host retreats with a mastermind attached to it. So it's a 3-night retreat in a mansion. And the next one coming up is in May. I have my wait list. It has started. My website, you can add yourself to that list, where I'm going to have people coming in every single night to pour into us. There's going to be lots of hot seat style coaching, masterminding, brainstorming, and fully catered, all-inclusive type retreat. And then the following 10 weeks after that, we will be meeting weekly on Zoom. It's kind of like if you go to church camp as a kid, or you go to a really igniting conference and you're all on fire, and you get back into your routine of your regular life and you're like, where is that fire that I had while I was there? So that's why it starts with the retreat, and then we meet on Zoom, because if you start with Zoom and you end with the retreat, it's just not the same. Having that in-person energy with everyone in the room for those 3 nights, when we build connections, we get vulnerable, we grow, then we can keep that flame going over the next 10 weeks after that. So that's what I love doing. I also just have one-on-one coaching that you can book on my calendar at any time. But I love gathering women because I think there's magic in being in community with other people, like-minded people.
I love that. And it's a passion of mine too, just women helping women and really sharing and not existing in these silos, because we should be lifting each other up.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
Well, I'll of course put all this information in the show notes so folks can find you. Are there any things I didn't ask about that you want to talk about or that you think would be valuable for this audience?
I think one final thing that I would leave you with is, if you happen to be in a relationship with somebody who struggles with big, risky ideas like leaving your job or starting a business. I am married to those, and we've had very challenging conversations until we figured out how to communicate. And it's one of the most common themes with the women that I help, that they're married to somebody that doesn't understand how they're. So what has helped us here at my house is to cue the conversation first. So my husband's an engineer and his job is to make sure that bridges don't fall down. So that's how he approaches my business ideas, which doesn't feel very good in the beginning when I'm in the excited what if stage. And I used to just basically smack him upside the head with my excitement. And he was freaking out thinking that this was happening tomorrow and we were going to the bank to take out a loan. And I was just excited and wanting him to match that energy. And he started just poking holes in my idea because he wanted to make sure it was sound. So once I started cueing him and saying, hey, I have a new idea that I'm just really excited about, and I want you to just be excited with me for 2 minutes about it. I'm not doing this tomorrow, but I just want to share it with you. And that allowed us to meet on the same page about something, and leveraging his hole poking skills later and letting him know, I will need you to help me make sure that this is a good idea and we're not going to go bankrupt on this, but that's not what I need right now. And that has allowed us to come back together as a couple and really see where our strengths are. So if you happen to be with somebody that doesn't like taking risks, give them a little heads up before you bring up an idea, and it can help a lot.
That's really cool. I was just thinking about how as teachers, we are really good at that kind of meta communication. We're like talking and communicating on 10 levels at once. Oh my gosh, that's pretty awesome. Well, thank you so much for this conversation and sharing. I think you have a really valuable perspective, and it's just been a joy to talk to you.
It was so fun for me too. Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks for tuning in to How to Leave Teaching. It's a complex transition, but you're not in it alone. Dive deeper and find more resources on our website. Keep pushing forward, and we'll be right here with you in the next episode.